Thank you and good morning to the Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee for this day, St Patrick's Day, the 17th of March 2026. Just apologies first before we get into formal proceedings for our lateness in starting this morning. Those who are watching either live or will be watching at a later time. We do have some temporary recording arrangements in while there is some new equipment being installed here, so we were just getting a rundown on how that temporary recording equipment would work so that we can operate the meeting as per normal. We have in attendance this morning a full complement of the members of the committee. I'll just read through them. We have the Deputy Chairperson, Councillor Paul Tully. We have Mayor Harding, Deputy Mayor Jonik, Councillor Augustine, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Martin and Councillor Madden, all in attendance. I ask Councillor Madden to please give the acknowledgement of country.
Thanks, Chair. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land and waters we share. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as the keepers of the traditions, customs, cultures and stories of a proud people.
Very good, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest for the agenda today? I'm looking around the room, I can't see any. Thank you. I understand there's no business outstanding. Item 1 is the confirmation of minutes of the meeting of 17th of February this year. Are there any questions, any adjustments, amendments, errors to be highlighted? If not, would someone like to move that they be an accurate record? Thank you. Councillor Doyle has moved, seconded by Councillor Augustine. Thank you. Any discussion? There being no discussion, put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous around the room. Officers' reports, item 2, provisional projects approval. I note that there is only the one recommendation in that. It does relate to Division 3, so I might seek a mover of that, if I might. Councillor Doyle, and I'd be happy to second that. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Are there any questions in relation to the matter? Any discussion? Thank you, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank council officers for identifying a suitable location for the dog bowl. As you're aware, Chair, we've been working on this for a while. Queen's Park is a very large park in Ipswich Central, and there's a few complexities around it though, with lots of playgrounds for the children. We had to find suitable locations. So we've identified one near the Nature Centre, and note that we're working with council officers to potentially identify a second location. Just around the cost and the pricing, we are acutely aware of how much pieces of infrastructure are costing ratepayers. So we're also having those discussions with council officers, and council officers are doing the hard work as well to try and minimise those costs where possible.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Doyle. Just on that, for most people, they might just think that putting a dog bowl in a park is a very simple exercise, and even though it might only be at small cost, as people can see from the recommendation, we are required to actually have the dog bowl or the runoff from the dog bowl, like any other tap in a park facility, connected to a sewerage line, which is rather bizarre in many respects, but that is the law, and we must follow the law with respect to that. But just as importantly, as you've highlighted, Councillor Doyle, that creates that complexity in finding another location. We all know that the people like to walk around Queen's Park early hours and evening of the day, and they bring their dogs with them, so having that available to them is, I'm sure, will be well received. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. The recommendation is put to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And no doubt Councillor Doyle thanks you as well. Item 3. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Sorry, Chair.
I said no doubt you thank everyone as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Item 3 refers to the Department, Asset and Infrastructure Services Department Capital Delivery Report, and this is for the month of January this year. I just ask if there's any questions in relation to the matter before I ask the General Manager, Ms Mackenzie, if there's any highlights she wishes to refer to within the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the report is for January capital for AIS. We spent $4.23 million, and although this was slightly under for the month, we're still tracking slightly ahead for the financial year and on track to meet budget for the year. Some of the highlights were Adelong Avenue reaching completion. The road resurfacing program remains on track for completion in Q3, with most of the areas complete. Ripley and Reef Road service relocations continued in January. That project is pushed out slightly due to delays in those service relocations and now likely to be completed around August this year. And Springfield Parkway upgrade remains on target, with the water main relocation works being the focus for January, as well as recommencing with the gas main relocation preparations. And tender documentation for the civil works of that project were commenced in preparation for release to market in January.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions, if I may, for the General Manager. Just in relation to page 27 of our papers, the project name, the Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangement projects, under Category C, Community and Recreational Assets Recovery, there's open space and facilities repairs. Given that this is coming under the disaster recovery funding arrangements, I'm assuming that is repair and maintenance as a result of weather events as opposed to vandalism?
Through the Chair, yes, that is correct. It's a result of the Alfred event.
Yeah, thank you. And just on page 29, so under, the grant project schedule for delivery, page 29, the SEQ Livability Fund, there is the condition assessment for stormwater network assets, which is currently in progress. Could you give me a little bit more information about that one, please?
Through the Chair. So that is a project that runs over a few years with partial funding through that grant funding, and it allows us to go and CCTV our stormwater, parts of our stormwater network. So we will focus on the areas that are high risk in terms of we know there's potential damage through flooding or other drainage issues, and we'll get cameras down there through contractors. They're out there now actually starting that work. And then we will get condition assessments on our pipe work, and that will allow us to better plan for the future on what repairs need to occur in our drainage network.
Okay, so that will help with flood mitigation measures by council, particularly where there's older infrastructure in some of our older suburbs that are prone to flooding, and overland flow in particular?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Just through the Chair, with the page 27, disaster recovery funding, why is the date 30th of June 27 on most of the projects to be completed? It seems an extraordinary amount of time.
Through the Chair, that is the date that we need to complete those projects that have been impacted from Tropical Cyclone Alfred. So we have a set timing through our funding arrangements with QRA, and so we must complete those by that date. That's the last date. We do plan to complete most of those sooner than that date, though.
That's good to hear, thank you.
It looks like we are ahead of schedule too on that. So, further questions? Put the recommendation, which is just a receive a note, to move that be accepted, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Thank you. Discussion. In relation to the matter, I'll just highlight, and I would think that just about every resident or person who drives regularly through the Ripley area, Ripley Road particularly, would be keen to see that we have commenced work in relation to particularly the service relocations. And I note that whilst there have been some difficulties in that, and that will push out to August, as you've said, General Manager, I think that it is good to see that that has commenced, and that means that when we do commence those roadworks in the not too distant future, we will be excited about those roads opened up ultimately. Further, I note in attachment 2, it would be page 37 of our agenda, just an update on some of the capital portfolio. Anyone that's been driving along Chermside Road near Blackstone Road intersection would see the progress of the ceremonial healing and remembrance place that is being constructed there. Every day I drive past there and it's pleasing to see the works progressing. And I'm not sure, can I ask also when that is expected to be finalised?
Thank you, Chair. We are hoping to have practical completion in the next week or so. However, we will be having a ceremony in a few months' time.
Very good. So it's very pleasing to see. Seconder, would you like
Oh, yeah.
to? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Noting you've already just highlighted the fantastic project that's underway at Queen's Park, the Ceremonial Healing and Remembrance Place. In addition to that, the Capital Portfolio Update report highlights a number of projects within Division 3, one being the footpath on Prospect Street, Silkstone. Chair, you and I are regularly contacted by residents around that area, particularly in relation to accessibility and the concrete footpaths for those with mobility issues. So it's great to see that that footpath has been replaced. The Limestone Park athletics accessibility improvements, of course, that's a great addition. The Limestone Park athletics up there, Little Athletics and Ipswich and District Athletics, that's a great outcome for that group that regularly use that space. And then, Campbell Street Wood End, another project that's being completed there, which is the Sealed Road rehabilitation. So obviously through Wood End, it's one of the really older suburbs, and the infrastructure there is certainly needing maintaining regularly. So it's great to see that project done. Thank you to council officers.
Councillor Augustine.
Thank you, Chair. I would also like to point out Ripley Road as well. Our community are very interested in, they've got a high vested interest in that road being completed. Going to community groups, that's the number one question they want to know. They don't necessarily see the service relocations.
No.
They see the digging up of the road as, hey, something's happening. So, I think a lot of them will be pleased when we actually start, can I use the words, dig up the road? Yes, for the community. So that's a really important one for Division 1, but also for the wider community of Ipswich, because it's not just the residents of Ripley that use that road, or will reuse that road. The other thing I wanted to point out as well, in week 1 of this term, when we came in, Councillor Madden, his first project that he wanted to see up was this road called Adelong. And I was like, where's this Adelong? And now this road, through Councillor Madden's advocacy, the road has been sealed and completed. So when I say, sorry, Mayor?
That's okay, sorry. I'll speak later, thank you.
All right. Well, I think it was Councillor Madden really pushing every part of that project to get through. So others might have a different view from previous term, but I'm talking on my behalf of this term and how strong Councillor Madden actually advocated for this road as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Perhaps Councillor Madden may wish to respond.
Kind words, but I think I'll preempt what other councillors may want to say, is that That was a 3-year project, and it was originally approved in the previous term of the council. But certainly, Councillor Martin and I visited the worksite a number of times and had to deal with a number of issues with local residents. Very minor changes, but there are still issues there where I believe, and Councillor Martin and I believe, that we can improve overland flow with regard to stormwater, particularly from the sports field there. And we're still working on that project. Keep your eye on it, Councillor Augustine. There's drainage works that are yet to be done, not necessarily on Adelong Avenue, but very close to Adelong Avenue. But thanks again for those kind words. Chair, I'd just like to highlight a couple of items in the agenda in Division, or one item in Division 4, and that's the first item listed, which is the riverbank stabilisation work, where there's $9,637,185.27. Interesting to see the cents in there with these grants. I would have thought they'd drop the cents, but I know Councillor Martin's had the opportunity to do an inspection of those works, and anyone that drives along Rosebery Parade or Bremer Street will see big white chunks on the riverbank where material is being put down, then rocks are being put on there. It's a massive project, and it's been going for a very long time, and it required a road to be built from near the old Willam Mills through to the job site just to get the work going, because that was the only way that the council could access the site. But Chair, I'd just like to thank council officers involved in that project. I notice there's another item that's not in Division 4. The next item down is River Hark Bank slippage stabilisation works, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing those works, and I'm sure you are too, Chair. Very much looking forward to those works. That's valued at $5 million, but it's sort of one of those things, the stabilisation works of Riverlink after the Alfred event. It may not have been obvious that there'd been damage to that riverbank, and particularly with regard to the footpath. But to give you an idea of how much damage there was, we're now spending $9.5 million to fix up the damage. So it may not be obvious, but it's the number one project in money-wise in this report, and very pleased to see the work progressing. And I thank all council officers, including the GM, for her hard work with regard to this matter. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking around the table. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll talk about Adelong Avenue, and I thought I'd give some of the history there. That it's been a road that for a long, long time, for over a decade, has been a bugbear for residents, for about 15 years. And the council first put money towards this in the 2021-2022 budget. Just over $1 million was put towards it, and each year we've had continued to put money towards it. So it's been something that has been ongoing in our this council last term and this term. I am very grateful that the council this term have continued to put money towards it. It's a road that had to have a lot of design work happen. We had to do a lot of drainage and culvert works before we could even start resurfacing. And there's a lot of pressure on the council and the Division 4 councils at the time to just resurface it, but we actually couldn't do it without the proper drainage. And I think if you go down that road, there's probably over 20 driveway treatments as well. It's been a massive job, and it's really great to see it. And I think it's been a great piece of work from the council from this term and last term. Thank you, Chair.
Any further, just looking around the table? No? Yeah, just thank you to councillors and the Mayor for your comments in relation to that. I think, as has been highlighted, Adelong Avenue is a very complex street. It is, in many respects, one of those sort of outer suburban areas where large lot residential and years have been impacted in some degree by some of the works to the rail corridor as well, my understanding is, some of the changes with respect to how drainage works. So it's very good to see that council's worked towards resolving a lot of those issues in Adelong Avenue, and no doubt the divisional councillors will continue to work with the residents on that. Also want to thank Councillor Dole for highlighting the disability access path to Little Athletics. just want to stress that in many respects, it's the little projects that can mean so much to a community, and that is one of those projects in itself that might be overlooked by many people or might not even seem major to many people, but it has had a major impact on accessibility. So, as I said, the little projects can mean so much to our community. Thank you for your comments. I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. I believe we're up to item 4. Just double checking. What I may do, rather than go to item 4, seek the indulgence and move, council, that we go to item 7, so that the general manager can remain for that remaining item that refers to her department. Do I need to move that, or can I just seek the indulgence? So
Yeah,
I'll move
it's
that
got the
item 7 be moved up the agenda, seconded by Deputy Mayor Johnnick. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move to item 7 now of the agenda, which refers to a response to petition, installation of pedestrian crossing on Jones Road, Bellbird Park. I note that there is a recommendation, quite a extensive recommendation there regarding that matter. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Doyle. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Johnnick. So I should have asked for questions first. Is there any questions of the officers in relation to the matter?
I have one particular question.
That's Councillor Johnnick. I just recognise Councillor Johnnick. Yes, could you repeat, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Just in relation to the location, obviously it's on a sub-arterial road. I understand the traffic laws relating to restricting pedestrian crossings in this location. I'm just wondering about the footpath on the western side of Jones Road. And this might be a question on notice, but do we have plans to install a footpath on the western side of Jones Road from the signalised intersection in front of the Bellbird Park Secondary College?
Through the chair, there are no current plans in the program to install that footpath, so that would have to be something that could be brought forward if councillors wished for it to be brought into the program.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, moving back to the recommendation, we do have a mover and seconder. Is there any discussion in relation to the matter? I look primarily towards the divisional councillors as to whether they have any comments in relation to the matter. If there's none, any around the room, the mover or the seconder wish to discuss? I recognise the Deputy Mayor again. Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to thank the detail that the officers have put into the petition response, and just wanted to kind of touch on how difficult like a topic this is when it talks to like the safety, but then the standards and the laws that council has to work under from the state as well. So there is, it is nuanced basically, but I will look ahead and maybe discuss a footpath on the western side further with councillor officers, so that they can safely cross at their signalised intersection and then walk safely on the footpath. Thank you.
Very good. No further discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Against? I note I didn't see a hand from you, Councillor Tully. Is that an abstention? Just note for the record that all councillors voted for, with the exception of Councillor Tully, who abstained from the vote. Just checking that's been recorded. Thank you. We now move back with the indulgence of the committee to, I believe it's item 4. I'll just wait for the General Manager to prepare himself. You good to go? Chief, ready? Very good. Okay, so item 4 relates to annual progress report of the City and Ipswich Local Housing Action, City of Ipswich Local Housing Action Plan. Is there any questions of the officer? Yes, Councillor Harding. Before I do, is there any...
Mayor Harding.
Mayor Harding. Is there any comments you wish to make as the General Manager in relation to the report?
Thanks,
Mr.
Chair. Committee, if you would like, Nathan Rule.
I was just going to ask for the officer to just speak to the report briefly, and then I'll come to questions then. Yep.
Committee, if there's a desire, Nathan Rule from the City Design branch is here and available to provide an overview, if you would like, of the Local Housing Action Plan, but otherwise happy to be responsive to questions.
Okay, we'll go to quick. You'd like an overview? Is there any other, Councillor Martin would also like a bit of an overview, as does Councillor Augustine. With the indulgence of the committee, we'll ask Mr. Rule to come forward and give a overview, and then we'll open for questions. So this is just on the progress of that plan.
It's working. Morning, councillors. Nathan Rule, Manager, City Design Branch. So we're pleased to provide, this is the first year annual report of the City of Ipswich Local Housing Action Plan. So the team has been busy. So just in terms of a high-level summary, so there was, out of the 40 actions in the plan, 15 of those have been completed or have an ongoing basis to them. 21 have commenced and are in progress, and there are 4 that have not commenced. Out of the actions, the single most significant one is the adoption of our new planning scheme last year on the 1st of July. And this activated a range of things like new residential zone land, increased opportunities for infill housing in existing urban areas, and a greater mix of lot sizes and housing types, and those sort of things. And other key achievements for the year included the establishment of the LHAP Working Group, which is a joint council and state government group, the adoption of council's housing diversity and affordability incentives policy, progressing the Western Corridor Structure Plan project, and then looking to unlock 4 hectares of land at Bundamba. This is the EDQ land there. And also delivering housing for families recovering from domestic and family violence. So that's a bit of a summary for the year.
Thank you very much. I'll get you to remain, if I may, Mr. Rule, just in case you're needed for questions. I understand that Mayor Harding had some questions, so I open up to you and recognise you, Mayor Harding.
Thank you, Chair. And I think this might be more a question for the CEO, but in recommendation B, it talks about the priority actions be revised during 2026. May I just confirm that will come through council? It'll be a council decision, and that council will be briefed on that. It won't just be revised by council officers.
Given it's a plan that was approved by the council, that would be our intention through the chair.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, yes, I recognise Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one question on page 49 of the report. There's a discussion around unlocking surplus government land, and specifically in relation to Bundamba, which has been noted already in the room. Infill development is continuing to provide some challenges for residents and council. So ordinarily, large developments, infrastructure is delivered or co-funded by the developer. In relation to infill, because they're smaller, this is my layperson understanding, the infill development, they're often much smaller projects. So the ability of council to impose conditions on those sorts of developments to deliver improved or rehabilitated roads traffic signals is very, very limited. The specific feedback from the community, and can I just say I support the move by EDQ to unlock this land for housing. We absolutely need it. But my question is, where is council's ability to call on additional funding? Keeping in mind Bundamba is a very old suburb. This development and required upgrades to road infrastructure is not in our 3-year or 10-year capital program. Now all of a sudden we've got this infill, and it's right across Ipswich, not just, Bundamba. Where's that pool of money coming from? What's that lever where we could potentially ask the state government for funding to help upgrade the roads around this infill development? Long-winded, I know.
You wanna go
It
first?
was.
Yes, so.
Sorry, with respect, Chair, and
I
as you know,
understand where you're going.
we're very passionate
Share very
about
sa-
this.
I think
It's a
share
challenge.
Very similar
Yeah.
concerns.
Yeah, so through the chair, with these types of projects, in some locations, the roads have been built already or historically to accommodate
Yeah.
the increase in traffic. So some of these locations have had plans for densification for a while. In other cases, the roads are not necessarily built to accommodate infill, but those roads are not big enough to justify being trunk roads, so they're not identified in our LGIP either. And so then our options to condition projects are limited to how we actually assess the application and how much traffic they're generating. So if they're creating a small change to an intersection, then we've got limited opportunity to change things and get them to change things. And if there's already degradation of a pavement, we can't go and ask the developer to repair that issue. In saying that, we will look at each development and consider how upgrades are required in the vicinity of the proposal to accommodate that proposal. And if that means that an intersection upgrade is required, then we will require, within reason, an intersection upgrade or a pavement upgrade or a road width increase. But that is not automatic. It depends on the project.
So if I may, Mr Davey, would it be correct then, if something like this is highlighted as part of a new development, when we build our capital program, would projects like this potentially inform what that capital program would look like and that queue of projects?
Not necessarily, because it would take a pretty significant infill project to change our capital program.
Yep.
So we would then need to be responsive to what issues are created by either one or a series of infill projects. So as an example, in this location, if an intersection is already at capacity, then it would be up to us to determine, well, is that issued to an extent where we need to go and intervene and upgrade an intersection? Or is the pavement deterioration to a point where we need to go and intervene? It's not necessarily always attributable to a developer to do that work. And that's where we would have to factor it into our capital works program. We wouldn't, in approving a development, it wouldn't automatically trigger consideration for inclusion of works in our capital work program.
Is it a factor though within the methodology that creates that 3-year capital program each year? Is there an ability, the back end amongst policy and procedure to look at these sorts of things?
We would have to have a look at it. At a project level, it doesn't, but we keep an eye on development activity, and that's one of the reasons why we do traffic counts, is so that we can understand, obviously the effect of a development is not felt until it's built and active. And so that's why we do an annual traffic count program, just to see what the change of intersections looks like, what the change of road utilisation is, and then if there is a trigger for that road or intersection to be, upgraded or treated in a different way.
Okay, thank you.
Just before I recognise you, Councillor John, I was having Councillor Doyle, I was actually having a discussion about that very matter with our support team, and the need for you and I to sit and discuss that very matter for that very location at Bundamba. Yes, I now recognise the Deputy Mayor.
Just in relation to the attachment to when we've got the progress comments for the action items, I just noted the action items that are in red mainly revolve around a social housing delivery plan that the state has handed down for Ipswich specifically. Have they handed down any social housing delivery plans specifically for any other LGAs or areas, or is it all encompassed within their released policies about livability? Sorry, I don't know the exact names of those policies.
Yeah, so no, it's, Councillor, the state does not go down to the LGA level, even though we think it would be a good idea to do that. Those targets are sort of statewide. So council doesn't, there's no council in the state that has LGA specific a delivery plan for any local government, despite the fact that we think it would be a good idea for our city.
Thank you. And then you've also mentioned that there's room there for advocacy in relation to our limited funding mechanisms because of the state legislation for infrastructure charges, etc. So is that something that we'll add into an action to actually formulate some specific advocacy around the fact that you can't build more houses without appropriate infrastructure, and so we are shortchanged?
So there is an action around specifically the infrastructure charges framework, which we think is fundamentally broken in the Act. And there are things like the Residential Activation Fund, which is a state government initiative that helps to kind of fill that gap. But there's still a lot of work that needs to happen in that infrastructure space that has an impact on housing, but it also has an impact on commercial and industrial land as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
No further questions, questions? Councillor Martin, I recognise Councillor Martin.
No, is that hard to recognise? Yeah, just speaking on behalf of residents, like our population's 270,000 and growing, and that's one of the chief things they ask. They talk about our infrastructure, and it is somewhat frustrating. In Centenary Highway, I noticed just fallen off the top 200 projects, and it just seems really frustrating to our residents. We'd like to be able to give them some assurance that moving forward we're going to see upgrades. I went to Springfield the other day and was horrified. I normally go, it's a 25, 30-minute trip going down Blackstone Road. Traffic was backed up from Blackstone Creek, crawling along. I thought, oh yeah, maybe because of the signalisation at Mary Street, but didn't start to dissipate till we got to the 4 lanes of Redbank Plains Road. And we have many roads across the city now that are at, how do you say, choking point, and I know residents find it really frustrating, and they'd like to have some assurance from our town planners that when people come here, that we have some plan for further infrastructure growth, as Councillor Johnick said, Councillor Doyle, and I dare say speaking on behalf of all of us.
Point of order, Chair. I think it's the question and answer part of the meeting. I think that's more of a discussion point later on, if I may say, Chair.
Was there a question in relation to your matter?
Yeah, just a question in terms of what assurance does the general public ratepayers have that moving forward that we do have some plan to do something about the congestion on our roads from state government asking us to take more housing. This is LHAP plan, I thought, Mayor, so I thought it was appropriate.
I'll probably provide a high-level question on that, and that is that we've got an infrastructure plan for the city. The infrastructure plan deals with the things within our control in terms of local roads and upgrades for those local roads within our trunk network. And then we've got our capital works program, which deals with other roads and other pieces of infrastructure upgrades. So we do have a plan. As Deputy Mayor Johnick raised earlier, there's a funding issue in terms of how much we are able to collect to afford that infrastructure. And that's an advocacy piece and also a challenge in us trying to get any piece of funding that's available to deliver trunk infrastructure, hence some of the funding we got for Ripley Road, for example. Separately to that, there's a whole focus at the moment on state infrastructure, and there's been consecutive efforts and advocacy from our council to not only have a regional plan but have a regional infrastructure plan. And so many of the gaps that you're referring to that are causing problems are the absence of upgrades to critical state infrastructure, highways, interchanges. Those things aren't in our control, but we can advocate for them. And of course, we report our stats in terms of our growth statistics to the state regularly, so they are aware of the growth pressures we're facing. So the next piece we need to focus on is another shaping SEQ review at the moment, the regional plan review. We need an infrastructure plan to match that.
I just recognise the CEO. You got your, yep.
If I can just add to what the General Manager said there in relation to advocacy, so the critical and enabling infrastructure, transport infrastructure like the Centenary Motorway are one of our significant advocacy priorities, and that motorway and other significant highways that are state-owned were highlighted in the Council's federal government and state government budget submissions that we recently forwarded. And there has been a response provided by the state government that acknowledged those critical and enabling infrastructure priorities, but clearly there is significant advocacy that we need to continue to do as a council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. Again, I look around. Any further questions of the officers? If there's no, thank you, Mr. Rule. Appreciate your insight. The recommendation, just go back to the front, is, I believe, a receive and note, is it not? No, there are actually two recommendations in relation to the matter. Is there a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Jonik, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Discussion. So the mover, I'll seek the mover first. The mover was the Deputy Mayor. Anything you wish to raise?
Thank you, Chair. I just think, one, this action plan highlights how much work that we put in as a council to a problem that isn't wholly and solely ours, or really not ours at all, from a government layer. So I commend everyone involved there. Two, I think that if the wider community actually knew and understood the shortfall that our council and all councils are in, they would be bewildered, because it's about livability. It's about delivering houses, but then having the right to have a home that you are proud of and that you find satisfactory to live in that community as well. So it's one thing to unlock the housing market, but it's another thing to look at the surrounding infrastructure and then look at the livability of people that actually live there. And that's what we deliver, and that's what we have this massive shortfall of. And it's not just the state government, it's the federal government. I mean, the state they receive money from the federal government, so they're heavily reliant on the federal government as well. And then we're relying on them. So, you know, we're third in line, and it's the people that suffers. So I think that the more we can do to advocate for more livable homes for residents and future residents, the better. But yeah, I highlight and commend the actual detail in this plan. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Doyle, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Noting we've had a lot of discussion focused around the infrastructure that's required to be delivered as the local housing action plan takes shape and development comes to life to meet the need of housing. But yes, noting we've had a lot of discussion around the cost of that infrastructure and the money that is lacking, there are lots of positives to be celebrated out of the policy. So I just thought I'd highlight a few examples, noting that the City of Ipswich Local Housing Action Plan resulted in a range of measures to activate housing supply and diversity, increased opportunities for infill in existing urban areas, and then removal of regulatory barriers for secondary dwellings. I've got a few examples within Division 3 that I'd like to call out. Firstly, a resident of ours in Basin Pocket purchased a tiny house And I was delighted to be contacted that finally her tiny house was in place in her daughter's backyard. This wonderful resident is ageing in place with the care and support of her family. So it was great to see that tiny house delivered, and that's something that the Local Housing Action Plan supports. Secondly, Chair, yourself and I joined Mayor Harding last week at the opening of the social housing project with the state government at Baval, opposite the train station. What an amazing complex. And we got to meet the first new official resident, our
Dawn.
resident of Division 3. And that building is targeted at women, particularly over 55. We know that that cohort is at risk from statistics. They are at risk of homelessness. But an also great outcome of that was with these individuals moving into apartment living in this complex. It's freeing up the stock, the 3 and 4 bedroom homes for the families that are also in the queue for social housing. And then finally, of course, the domestic violence transitional housing project within Riverview. Another amazing outcome where council partnered. It's all 3 levels of government. Council provided the land, and the Domestic Violence Action Centre will deliver that project. So 3 really great examples of what we can deliver under that policy. Thank you.
Continue, I believe, Mayor Harding.
Chair. Thank you very much for this very important report, Chair. Although councils are not the lead agency in the delivery of housing, there are certain levers that we can pull to play our part in bringing more housing diversity and supply to the market. This is particularly important in the midst of a housing and rental accommodation crisis across South East Queensland and Australia more broadly. And has been discussed here this morning, infrastructure so residents can move about in a timely manner is absolutely essential, as well as the social infrastructure and the sporting infrastructure. When you look at all the taxes that the people in Australia pay, 81% of taxes go to the federal government, 16% goes to the state government, and 3% comes to the council. And council obviously maintains 78% of the road network, as well as waste services and other areas. Obviously, we don't have to look after schools and hospitals and defence forces and things like that, but it goes to show why councils, even though we receive such a tiny portion of the rates of the taxes that are paid, our community does expect us to advocate to the state and the federal governments for a better deal and for better infrastructure. If I look over the last 6 years in the advocacy that we've had, we have secured full funding for the new Mount Cosley Road interchange, the Bremer River Bridge works, for $40 million for the North Ipswich Reserve, Western Grandstand project. Just recently, the $73.6 million in the RAF funding for Ripley Road. We will now have funding for the final business case for the Ipswich to Springfield train line, so that we're investment ready, and also the $4 million for the second river crossing as well. And there's other programs and projects that our federal and state MPs have helped us and worked with us to secure. So it goes to show how important it is to go with that. Back to the local housing plan here, it's really positive to see that of the 40 priorities outlined in this plan, 90% have either been completed or already in progress. In 2025, approximately 3,150 drillings were delivered in our city, equating to a growth rate of 3.3%. And I'd like to highlight that the Ripley Valley Priority Development Area accounted for 38% of that growth, so phenomenal growth there. So given the recent success of Council's hotel and short-term accommodation action plan in strengthening our ability to attract a Hilton Garden Inn hotel, the levers that Council can pull can have a real impact, and it's great to see the Ipswich Local Housing Action Plan is well underway. Thank you, Chair.
Go around the room again. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Madden.
But that I don't have to turn it on anymore. There's been a very quiet project proceeding at North Ipswich. I'm surprised it hasn't received more media attention, and that's construction of another 5-storey unit block, and they're very familiar around Ipswich. There's one on the corner of Roderick Street and East Street. There's one on Station Road that were built at the same time. There's even another one on the terrace. So thanks to the state government for their ongoing efforts to provide social housing, and as was pointed out, social housing in Ipswich, and as was pointed out by a previous speaker, the beauty of the social housing with 1 or 2 bedroom units, it allows houses with 3 bedrooms to be to be freed up for families that need larger housing. So I'd like to thank the state government and possibly through federal government funding for their continued efforts to build social housing in Ipswich. Thanks, Chair.
Any further discussion? Just to comment in relation to the matter, when we talk about livability in a city, there are more than just the availability of housing that is considered when factors of livability are concerned. And we hear often each year cities around the world that are recognised for their livability, and the factors that are considered, many of which have been discussed here today by councillors either during the question time or during our discussion, and particularly with respect to movement, connectivity of residents, the availability of parks and recreational areas, and other needs such as health and other, particularly services from other levels of government, including transport. So we do need all levels of government to assist us as a city, and as the Mayor has highlighted numerous occasions, we get a paltry 3% of the tax that Australians pay, and you can basically say that that is just the crumbs. And it's not necessarily enough for a city of our size, one of the fastest growing cities in the country, to be able to provide that level of infrastructure and to provide for the livability going forward. As we've heard from some of the councillors, that is a great concern. It's one of the reasons why we also have or introduced recently the infrastructure levy to assist us with our long-term needs for infrastructure going forward. So I wish to commend, particularly in relation to this report, those who authored, put together a report, and whose responsibility it is to continue to develop that plan going forward. So thank Nathan and your team. I thank the General Manager for your stewardship of that, and we thank you very much for the report today. Again, I come back to the mover and the mover for a right of reply. No right of reply. If there's no further discussion, put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. We are now up to item 5, which is a receive and note the exercise of delegation. Any questions in relation to that matter? If there's no questions, it is, as I said, a receive and note. I move the recommendation. A seconder, please. Seconded by Councillor Madden. Discussion? There being no discussion, put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimous. Item 5, that was item 5. Item 6, the Planning and Environment Court Action Status Report. There's been a bit of movement since the last meeting, so if there are any questions in relation to this or any discussion that is of a concern regarding to the court matters, we may need to close the meeting. However, you have a question. Right. Is there any, before I do that then, is there any questions that may not require closure of the meeting? Is there anything you wish to say in relation to the matter? Sorry, yes, Mayor.
I'll be guided by you, Chair, but I guess a yes or no. Have WMI proceeded with any appeals? Sort of my only.
Yes, through the Chair, we've received a notice of appeal late last week.
Okay.
Late last week.
Thank you.
So, okay, very good. And Councillor Tully, you have a question that may require the closure of the meeting?
Yes, Chair. If we're, I'll move that in accordance with section 254J3, in relation to item 6, 6C, sorry, that's section paragraph E.
Yeah.
I think that's the appropriate clause.
Correct.
I'll be guided by you and the CEO that the of the local government regulation 2012 that the meeting move into closed session to discuss item 6.
Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Madden. Discussion? No discussion. All those in favour of closing the meeting, raise your hands. That is unanimous. Thank you. The meeting now goes into closed session. Recommendation is, so- oh, sorry, my apologies. We are now live? Thank you. So we returned from closed session where we had questions just relating to some of those court matters. The recommendation is a receive and note only. Do I have a mover? Councillor Martin, seconded Councillor Madden. Discussion? No further discussion. Put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 7 was heard before. We now move to, I don't believe there's any notices of motion. The one was pulled. Any matters arising? No. Questions or general business around the table? There being none, I'll move on. That is the agenda for today's meeting. Thank everyone for, my apologies, Councillor Tully. 10:40. Do we have a seconder? We have a seconder in Mayor Harding. Discussion? No discussion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. I now close the meeting again. Thank everyone for their attendance. Good morning.